The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
And we are live to tape on the W2M Network for March Madness to the Max Part Duh. Works
what is this, Hot Shots?
Even, how about this, Erik? March Madness to the Max 2, even maddier. How's that?
That works.
I mean, given the tournament we've seen so far, I'm just saying. Hi, everybody. Good evening or morning whenever you are listening to this, as we are recording this once again on the Tuesday evening before the Sweet 16 games here come together to talk about the first and second round, as well as give you guys our re-bracket of the tournament going forward from the Sweet 16, because God knows ain't none of us got a snowball's chance in hell in our original bracket.
Especially in the South region.
I do believe somebody on this podcast is leading the poll.
Yeah, the only reason you're leading the poll is because two of my round of 32 games blew up in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, and two of my Final Fours are done.
Two of my Final Fours are done.
Yeah, two of my Final Fours are done too, Brandon. That doesn't excuse your pathetic picks.
I lost my national champion. So this for me is March Madness Part 2. You damn right I'm mad.
Oh, I should introduce us all, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you probably should.
It might help.
Kind of the host's job. Hi, everybody. Good evening or afternoon. As I said, regardless of when you are listening to this, I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Joining me, as per usual, on these here shindigs, the Joker to my Batman.
Sorry, I can't do a good Joker laugh.
That made you the Bray Wyatt to my Woken Matt Hardy.
So I'm being reincarnated next week into something different?
IRS Jr., biatch, enjoy it. Erik Watkins.
Oh, you never know how bitter you can get until you're on the wrong end of a game-winning shot. Damn Ramblers.
Hey, at least you didn't get screwed by the refs.
No, you guys lost fair and square. Hold on, we'll get to that in a second. Let's get through the introductions first. And finally, Jason Teasley.
Good evening, everyone.
Jason's probably the happiest of all of us on this panel because his team's actually made it to the Sweet 16.
Hello, Kansas. Suck it.
Yes. Well, not all of us have number one seed schools.
That's not our fault that you guys collapsed in the second half of the regular season.
Hey, fair enough.
That didn't help the South region.
Yeah, well, that is true.
Did not collapse in the second half of the regular season, thank you very much.
No, you guys just collapsed in the second half of your game against Loyola Chicago. Called it.
Fair.
I'm so disappointed in you, Erik.
Defend! Christ! Defend! You can't do that for 5 blipping seconds? Oh.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, my biggest upset pick had a 10-point lead in the second half and squandered it. And not only would that have given me a huge bonus of being able to call the biggest upset that any of us called, because we'll talk about the one that happened here in a few seconds, even though none of us called it. Stephen F. Austin was up by 10 on Texas Tech in the second half before going on to lose that game by 10. That would have not only given me the highest seed victory called, because I would have called the 14 over a 3 here, it would have knocked out one of Jason's Elite 8 in the first round.
Yeah, but that didn't happen, so.
I'm just waiting for Jason to, all right, this one day.
Because, I mean, somebody did have the biggest upset prediction from ours. Our picks.
Yeah.
Somebody
Okay.
did. Somebody did predict.
Talk about your homer pick. It's fine.
Somebody did have the biggest upset pick, and I was laughed at because of it.
Yeah.
Harry, I'm assuming this is probably one of the first things we'll talk about, so I'm going to segue you right into it. While I didn't say that it would happen this year, it's kind of funny how I was the one to ask the question of whether or not a 16 seed team would ever beat a number 1 seed team, and none of us on this panel said that it would happen this year, but it did.
Yes, it did, and it ruined a lot of brackets.
Oh, of course.
Virginia. This is the last damn time I put any damn faith in Virginia. The hell was I thinking?
Jason could have told you that.
That was the biggest loss since 1863 for Virginia.
I saw that meme you posted on your Facebook, Jason, and I must admit I laughed uproariously at it.
So did I.
The biggest loss.
If you're wondering who West Virginia is, it's the team that still has 2 teams in the NCAA tournament.
No, the other one. This is the biggest loss for Virginia since they lost the better half of their state.
Yeah. Well, some people still don't think West Virginia is a state.
There's so many comments there in so little time. I'm not going to make it because I don't want to offend certain people.
And let me just correct you there, Jason, for a second. You only have 1 team left.
Well, now.
Oh, I don't.
Well,
got 2.
West Virginia only has 1 team left. Marshall lost to West Virginia.
Yeah, but they still got further than Virginia.
True. I'll give you that. I will give you that.
All right, let's go ahead.
I posted it the day after the Virginia loss.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and discuss some of these upsets here. I mean, that wasn't even so much an upset in Charlotte on Friday night. That was an ass whooping.
Oh, yes. 20 points?
UMBC didn't just beat Virginia. They took them out to the woodshed.
The one time the Cavaliers allow more than 70 points this entire season. The one time.
Eric, I can top that with another stat, the one that I shared the night we were watching the game, because all 4 of us were in the were in our Facebook group chat talking about the tournament as it was happening, and I posted this doozy of a stat. Virginia scored 54 points in this game. UMBC scored 53
in the second half. Or in the second half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. So, I mean, was anybody more surprised of that game? I mean, they were the number 1 overall seed.
Correct.
Everybody was saying that the number 1 seed that was in danger was Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because a lot of people felt that Pennsylvania should not have been a 16 seed, which I can understand kind of where they're coming from with that. The Ivy League rarely gets any love from this committee, but at the same time, this is a Kansas team that has been horrendously inconsistent as a number 1 seed overall, as a number 1 seed as well. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people, Doug Gottlieb and Seth Davis specifically, felt that this could have been the year that it would happen with Pennsylvania taking out Kansas. But instead, it is indeed the Virginia Cavaliers who get to say sayonara, nice to see ya on the very first night of the tournament.
And they get the dubious honor of being the first ever number 1 seed to lose to a number 16.
And they're costing Little Caesars a load of money because Little Caesars made the statement that if a 16 seed ever upsetted a number 1 seed, that they would give away free $5 boxes for lunch. So
when did this happen?
Yeah, I didn't hear about this. Damn it!
Oh, it hasn't happened yet.
April 2nd, 11:30 to 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
You're welcome.
See, we just fed the masses. Just call me Jesus, because I just fed the masses.
I'll call you Jesus. How's that?
Ginger Damas.
Just remember, if there's a lightning bolt headed this way, his name is Jason Teasley.
Yeah. Let me
Right.
just.
I keep my mouth shut because I'm around my computer and a lot of other electrical equipment.
Yeah.
Lightning would kind of exacerbate that problem.
Yeah, it would.
Brandon,
I'm just going to say this: if a lightning bolt's going to strike me over that, I'm pretty sure I would have got struck over the night of the kickoff. That went off the rails.
Good point. Good point. Very good point.
all right, Brandon, you were about to say something.
Let me just get it out of the way because all three of you know it's coming, and I'll keep it short and sweet. And if you guys want to make a comment, so be it. But this is the reason why the NCAA tournament and college basketball will always and forever be superior to college football. That is all.
Okay. I will say that the way the NCAA basketball crowns their champion is superior to the NCAA football.
Yes.
NCAA football, in my opinion, is far more entertaining than college basketball.
Not if you don't have anything to fight for. If you don't have any true stakes on the line,
schedule bigger opponents.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We talked about this during the football season. We talked about this with the kickoff.
And I'm sure we'll get into it next year.
It does not matter. They will always choose, and you've seen it even in basketball, they've gotten to this point lately. They will always choose the higher prestige and what they expect the higher, the higher selling team over the team that has the better resume.
Which reminds me, speaking on behalf of the St. Mary's and the Penn States of the world here, Oklahoma, suck it.
Thank you. Notre Dame. There's Oklahoma, suck it.
The only overtime game of the tournament thus far, but they were on the losing end of it.
I thought there was another overtime game.
I do believe that was the only game to actually go into overtime. There were quite a few different games that were decided by 5 or less, and there were more than a few upsets. Shall we talk about the South region in general?
Yeah.
I had one.
I don't think I had a single team that I chose correctly. I think, well...
I take that back. I had 2 out of the 4 correct.
Let me see this for a second.
I had Kentucky. I had Nevada.
I had 2 as well. Or actually, I had 3. I take that back.
Who did you have?
I had Kentucky, Tennessee, and Cincinnati.
Tennessee lost.
Well, okay, if we're talking about going into the Sweet 16. Then yes, I only had 1. I only had 1, and that was Kentucky.
I had Kentucky and Nevada, and most people thought I was crazy when I said I had Nevada beating Cincinnati.
Yeah. Currently, in my bracket, I have Kentucky.
Wait, Brandon, let Jason talk.
Okay.
Kentucky, K-State is still alive. Nevada. No, I didn't. No, I've got Kentucky. Tennessee's gone. Nevada's gone. Gonzaga and Michigan. I've got 3 still alive in the South.
And this is in my ESPN bracket, which is the one that we're all together on. But in my Yahoo one that I decided to change last minute because I listened to you bozos, I don't have anyone in my Sweet 16 left because I picked Davidson over Kentucky.
I said that it could happen. I did not pick Davidson in that game, though. I will say the upset that I called in that region actually did happen. Sorry, Erik.
Yeah.
Erik called Davidson.
Yeah, I did.
Jason agreed with me in picking Loyola Chicago. Brandon took all 7-10, so he had Texas here.
Yeah.
Not
only did Texas not win, the team that beat them then beat the 2 seed. Nana boo-boo. All right, let's talk about other high seed choking, shall we? Here, but real quick before we move on from the South, if you had 9, 5, 11, 7, congratulations, you're a winner. And if you didn't have that, you're trying to say you had that, you're a goddamn liar.
I'm going to be honest right now. I've had 2 different ESPN brackets. I was 0 for 4 in both. Life goes on.
Did one of those ESPN brackets have Miami at Florida?
Both of them did. Both of them did.
A moment of silence for Erik's bracket.
No.
I feel if I had the ability to do sound effects, this would be where I'd play taps.
Yeah, if only I had prepared this beforehand, I would have had it prepared.
Yeah, well, Virginia wasn't the only number 1 school to crap the bed, as it were, there, as Xavier managed to choke away a number 1 seed as well. It was a bad day to be in Cincinnati on Sunday.
Oh, and it's only about to get worse. They've got nothing to look forward to for about the next, 8 months-ish.
More than that, I mean, are the Bengals really going to even do anything in the NFL season next year?
That's why I said 8, 9 months
okay.
for when basketball
until college basketball season comes back. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, we know the Reds ain't doing crap this year. But not only did Cincinnati, like I said, not only did Cincinnati lose on Sunday to Nevada, Xavier became the second number 1 seed to be bounced out of this tournament as they got taken down by Florida State. No, that's a little bit of extra salt in the wound for us, Erik.
Yeah, neither of you guys got through the second round, but your rivals did.
Florida
actually won our second round game. We went out in the round of 32 to Texas Tech.
No, that's what I was saying. I said getting through the second round.
Technically, it's the third now because of the first 4. Never mind. Go ahead.
That.
At least we can get immediate vengeance because it's baseball season.
Yeah,
that's my only hope right now.
Although I gotta root for Florida State a bit in college baseball because I know some guys that played for Florida State.
If you weren't the producer, Brandon, you're fired.
Hey, I know some guys from Florida too. Mike Zunino is a great dude.
I will say this much: I am looking forward to seeing the Seminoles take one on the chin on Thursday from Gonzaga.
You say that now.
Spoiler alert for predictions: I'm picking the Zags.
Well, of course you are.
Well, I had the Zags originally in my Elite Eight, if you guys recall correctly. I had Gonzaga versus North Carolina about North Carolina. What the hell was that?
That was embarrassing is what that was.
That was them making the ACC kind of look like a bitch.
Well, I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is what happens when you have to play a strong schedule and then go into the tournament and actually compete. You know, it used to be the Big East back in the day. Now it's the ACC. You know, everyone is all like, oh, they're all hype. You know, they're not as strong as everyone says. No, it's not that. It's that their conference schedule is so strong, so powerful, that you're worn out by the time you get into the tournament, and, you know, these schools from these top conferences don't do as well as a lot of people expect because you actually have to compete.
I want to interject with something with 4 examples. Exhibit A, Kansas. Exhibit B, West Virginia. Exhibit C, Texas Tech. And Exhibit D, Duke University. Come at me, bro.
Well, even with Duke, Brandon, I'm going to ask you this, and I like that you mentioned the Big East in their schedule. Remember when Kemba Walker led UConn to the national title?
Mm-hmm.
Remember how in that conference, just in their conference tournament, they were the 9 seed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think Syracuse, knowing what they've been through, could they pull something similar?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely not.
Hell no.
I don't think they will. I don't think they'll get past Duke, but would I be surprised if it did happen? No.
Here comes my catchphrase. You're higher than giraffe genitalia.
He doesn't usually use the word genitalia.
No, I'm being PC right now.
We're kind of keeping it family friendly here. The Midwest bracket has basically turned into Kansas versus the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
It is Kansas, Clemson, Syracuse, and Duke. If Syracuse, by some long shot, makes it by Duke, they will get bitch slapped by Kansas.
Boeheim, just get me one more win for my FanDuel. Just one more. I put faith in you. You've done well so far.
Screw Syracuse.
This is Kansas to lose. I really believe.
Yeah.
Duke will give them a game, but I don't think Duke's got enough firepower.
I think Duke will still get out of this.
Duke struggled with Florida, who's not nearly as good as Kansas was this year, and Kansas is now battle-tested after having made its way through yet another rigorous Big 12 campaign to break UCLA's record for consecutive conference championships. I agree with what Jason just said. This is Kansas's tournament to lose at this point. Unfortunately, as a Jayhawk fan, I've seen it far too many times that Kansas finds a way to do just that.
Well, you still have a big problem once you get to the Final Four.
And as an interesting thing, I did stumble across, now, this was quite some time ago, but still fairly recent, the World University Games. Think like the Olympics, but for college athletes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Who happened to represent the United States in men's basketball?
Kansas.
Davidson.
So this is a very experienced, very cohesive team. You got a philosophy that can compete on a much grander stage. But at the same time, how are they under this level of pressure?
The other thing, too, is how healthy is Udoka Azubuike's knee. He barely played in the opener. He played against Seton Hall, but he clearly was not 100%.
That could be a factor.
Spoiler
alert, that could be a factor.
If we run into Duke in the Elite Eight, we need Udoka Azubuike to cancel out Marvin Bagley III. Because Kansas runs a four-guard offense outside of Azubuike. We need a big inside to be able to handle Bagley because none of our guards can handle him.
We'll get into that when we talk Final Four.
Shall we talk about how disappointing the Big Ten was in this year's tournament?
Kind of to be expected, though.
I don't think we should talk about it.
Well, I mean, everybody was saying the Big Ten down year, only getting the 4 teams in. I mean, it's pretty much lived up to that lack of hype. They've delivered as expectations. Now, again, I will say, what is the Big Ten going to do, given how this year they had to be in New York City for their conference tournament, so they had that week off. Next year, what are they going to do now that they've decided on a 20-game conference schedule? I don't know how the Big Ten is really going to react to this, and I'm not sure that these changes are really going to work.
I think that having the conference title tournament a week before Championship Sunday, as it's come to be known, is a horrendous mistake because you're having too much downtime for your players before the start of the tournament.
Absolutely.
Michigan State came out super sloppy against Bucknell and then got it taken to them by Syracuse when Boeheim's Orange pulled the upset.
Hey, if you want to talk about disappointing, though, Big East just crapped it.
I mean, you guys still have Villanova.
Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah.
Plus, this isn't
till
the
this
Big
weekend.
This isn't the Big East of old.
I know this, but there's still a strong conference.
I mean, technically, if it makes you feel any better, Syracuse, the former Big East school, is still alive, too.
Screw Syracuse.
So is West Virginia. West Virginia is a former Big East school as well.
Maybe this is a sign that the Big East needs to not let teams go, Brandon.
Well, no, it's called football. Stupid football is the moneymaker, and those schools decided
you
to.
Watch your mouth about football, sir.
Those schools decided to run for the money.
Brandon,
Yes.
Miami could only carry the Big East in football, but for so long we had to go. But
No, that was long before this stuff happened.
We will still come back with open arms. Trust us.
I think the Big East is perfectly fine with staying as a basketball school or a basketball conference now.
Well, they don't really have a choice because they don't really have any football programs there anymore.
They do not.
What are you talking about? UConn's a powerhouse.
They're in the American.
They're in the American.
No, Villanova is a bit of a powerhouse just in the championship subdivision.
They're in the American.
The Massachusetts School of Deaf and Dumb is going to be awesome this year.
Giving Erik a second to recover here. 9-4-11-7 for the South. 9-4-3-7 for the West.
9-5-11-7.
Oh, you're right. 9-5. My mistake. 9-4-3-7 for the West. 1-5-3-2 for the East, making it the most chalkish. 1-5-11-2 for the Midwest. Erik, in your opinion, who's the biggest surprise in the Sweet 16?
I am going to be honest. While most people would say Syracuse, I was one of the people that said keep an eye on a couple of these play-in teams. Syracuse was one of them. Knowing the fact that with that school's history, with everything that Boeheim does, they were bound to make a run. But with all of the upsets, my biggest surprise is actually Texas Tech. Only a 10-point win over Stephen F. Austin, surviving a nail-biter against a reluctantly admitting very good Florida team. I'm going to need a drink after that one.
Thanks for everything, Chris. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
I mean, with that kind of a team, that's the one that you really didn't expect out of the Big 12, the fact that they made it there as a 3 seed and survived, kudos to them.
Brandon, who's your choice?
I'm honestly going to say the biggest surprise is Florida State. You know, they had to face Xavier, and, I thought Xavier could make a run this year, but I guess not. A little, honorable mention, albeit they had a much easier opponent, but, I don't think a lot of people expected Kansas State to make it this far either.
Jason, who's your biggest surprise in the Sweet 16?
Is nobody going to address the elephant in the room just because they don't want to hurt Erik's feelings?
No, there is no elephant. We said it once. We said it free. He's on a preserve, living his life in peace.
Loyola Chicago is the biggest surprise. I mean, not only did they upset Miami, they upset a very good Tennessee team as well. And honestly, spoiler alert, I don't think they're done.
I don't think they're done either.
You're damn lucky you told me about food, all right?
It's that damn Chaplin lady.
Yes,
you want to get
the old lady.
You go after her.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? The hardest thing about eating vegetables is, right? The wheelchair.
Oh God.
Oh Jesus, Jason.
Did you almost say that to me?
You're the one that brought him in, Erik. I blame you partially.
No, but
that's entirely fair point.
I like the fact that she. No, in all seriousness, I like the fact that the team is actually embracing her as like the unofficial mascot.
Well, not just unofficial mascot. She's also the scout.
Yeah, she is. She is. They like. I've seen like 2 interviews with her, and she like actually knows her stuff. She's actually giving insight to some of the better TNT analysis, but maybe we should get her for Selection Sunday next year.
I mean, she can't do a worse job than the head of the committee did this year picking teams.
Yeah, really.
True.
I'm going to go with the team that Brandon mentioned as his honorable mention here. I'm going to pick K-State here because I think pretty much everyone on this panel had Virginia in the Final Four.
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't know my checking game.
Let alone getting taken out in the first round. So, granted, K-State's path got a lot easier once UMBC pulled the upset of the century and maybe the millennium.
Yeah.
But this isn't a Kansas State team that was any good in the Big 12 regular season, let alone a Kansas State team that anybody expected to do anything come March.
Not to mention a Kansas State team that they were only up by 3 in those last couple of minutes, and then they finally put the game away. UMBC could have easily done it again.
Yeah, what happened was UMBC went cold in the second half.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it was a 50-43 final. Both teams went cold.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State, they just stayed a little bit less cold because when you save the ball in bounds and from the half-court line to avoid an over and back twice, you gotta make that shot. The Retrievers didn't.
Brandon, does it bring you any solace to know that your team had the second highest first-round point total in the tournament this year?
I guess. The way they lost still just irks me a lot.
Rock, chalk, J.
Hey, even you have to admit that illegal pick call was complete and utter BS.
I'm going to say the same thing to you now that I said when we were talking about this as the game was happening. There were some bullshit calls both ways in that game.
I won't disagree with you on that. But at that moment in time where Kadeen Carrington was absolutely on fire.
He's on fire.
Yes. And he was just gunning to drain another trifecta, and they were legitimately making a run, and then you get a call like that to just take all the momentum out. Just, no.
Speaking of that, I mean, the officiating in the tournament as a whole has been horrible.
Yeah, that's kind of a sports-wide problem these days now, though, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's more to do, especially in college athletics, but even in the pros as well. You can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but money talks, and these networks and these leagues want the top. They want the ratings.
And especially in the case of basketball, because remember, even up until just a few short years ago, CBS broadcast the entire tournament. They were losing money. I don't know if that's gotten any better now since they've involved like True TV and all these other networks, but that's still a big issue with basketball tournament time. Unique rather than any other college sports. So I gotta side a little bit with Brandon on this one.
Well, Brandon knows that I'm going back and rewatching old episodes of Monday Night Raw, and I know what people at home are listening are thinking here. This is a college basketball podcast. Why is he talking wrestling? Well, in regards to a character on Monday Night Raw named the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the announcer at this point in his career, Randy Savage, had a line of "Where money lies, honor dies."
Yep.
Yeah. Very
And I
apt.
think you can make that argument in regards to the status of both officiating as well as the general selections of both the college football and the college basketball playoffs.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah, I have no qualms with that statement.
Gentlemen, are you ready to re-bracket?
Let's do it.
Let's.
Maybe.
Way to be a contrarian.
As ready as we'll ever be.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm asking, are you guys ready to screw this up a second time?
Hey, we
That's
can't
more
screw it
like-
up any worse than we already did on the first try.
Here, hold my beer.
I went 22-10 in the first round. It is the worst first round I have had in 7 years. I never lose double digits in the first round. I saw the final results there.
Why couldn't this year have been like in 2010 when it was so straightforward that I almost won my bracket?
Because nobody likes you, Brandon. This is what happens to Seton Hall fans. It's what happens.
Just be glad I even decided to make a bracket this year, because if it wasn't for this group, I would have only done the FanDuel thing. But even then, after that first weekend, less than 1% of all FanDuel entries had all 5 of their teams alive, so even that wasn't immune.
All right, we start in the wacky South, where frankly things probably can't get much more ridiculous than they already have been here. I'm going to go somewhat chalk here, and then I'm going to have the minor upset in the other game here. I agree with Jason. I don't think Loyola Chicago is done yet. I think they beat Nevada, but I think that Kentucky has too much for both K-State and for Loyola Chicago. I got the Wildcats coming out of the South. Jason?
I'm right there with you. I've got Kentucky beating K-State and Loyola Chicago meeting up with the Wildcats and the Wildcats advancing.
Brandon?
I'm going to go the same exact route.
Erik?
No reason.
I'm slightly contrarian. I've got Kentucky winning out, but I do have them beating Nevada in the Elite Eight.
Oh, come on. You know you're just saying that because you're still bitter about them being in the first round.
100%.
Okay, not 100%.
99.
75, 80-ish. Yeah, I'll cop to that any day of the week.
99. You popped me with that one, Jason. All right, we move on to the West. Gonzaga, Michigan. The Zags return to the Final Four. Jason.
All right, you need to quit looking off my bracket because I have the exact same thing.
Brandon?
I want to say that, but at the same time, I kind of want to be contrarian, both for one, just to be contrarian, and to piss off both Harry and Erik here. And you know what? I'm going to go for it. Michigan against Florida State, and Michigan wins.
You. Okay. I have alcohol.
At least he doesn't have the Final Four, Erik. At least he doesn't have the Seminoles in the Final Four. I don't know that I could live in that world.
Don't tempt him.
No.
You see, you just put it in the universe. You just put it out in the universe. So
So
that
now
means
it's going to happen.
No,
God damn
what
it.
happened? If we're putting out things in the universe, I could really use $5,000 so I can head down to Miami the week after Memorial Day. I would love for that to happen, universe. If anything, if the Seminoles make the Final Four, universe, you better damn sure give me that one. Otherwise, we're going to have some words.
How about a Final Four prediction, Erik? Can we have that?
Yes. On my end, I've got Gonzaga beating Michigan to get back to the Final Four. The Zags, they're holding a place in my heart.
Me, you, and Jason all have the same final, the same coming out of that area. All right, let's move on to the East then. I have West Virginia over Villanova. I have Purdue beating Texas Tech, and then I got West Virginia going to the Final Four.
All right. Well, I agree with you. I agree with your Final Four, but I think it's going to be
Texas Tech.
It's going to be. I'm sticking with my original road to the championship, and I'm going to West Virginia, Texas Tech, with West Virginia advancing.
Once again, like Erik, this is about a 75 to 80% bitter thing with regards to my Gators.
Mm-hmm. And that is okay.
So I just want Texas Tech to lose, frankly. Brandon?
I'm sticking with my original pick. Overall, Villanova will advance to the Final Four.
You can burn the hell.
But in terms of the other side, this is a tough one. I think I have to go with Purdue here.
And
after Erik talks, I want to say why I'm not picking Purdue to advance, because that injury was nasty.
Erik, you got the floor.
Nasty injury aside, I'm still going with my original Nova beating Purdue to get to the Final Four.
You can burn it in hell too.
I knew I was going to piss off some of the Big 12 fans in the crowd, and yeah.
It's okay, Jason. We don't need him.
Yeah. It's all right. Us Big 12 guys will stick together.
Big 12, you mean the Big 10? and then the Big 10 should be called the Big 12 now?
Technically, the
Big 12 Big 10 is technically the Big 14, but that's
right,
neither.
It's the Big 14 now.
Yeah, you don't need me now. Just remember, I have cookies. Remember that, Jason. I have cookies.
C is for cookie, and that may be good enough for him. Anywho, let's move on to the Midwest, where it is Kansas versus the ACC, as I previously mentioned. Kansas, Clemson, Syracuse, and Duke. My Jayhawks take out the Dukies to go to the Final Four. Jason?
I'm right there with you. I mean, I just think Kansas is rolling, and they're right now the team to beat in this tournament.
Brandon, bitterness aside.
While I would not at all be surprised if Syracuse were to knock off the Blue Devils, I'm still sticking with my original pick, Kansas versus Duke, with Kansas advancing.
Erik?
I am changing my original pick. I've got Kansas coming out and advancing, but I think the Blue Devils succumb to the orange zone. I've got Kansas beating Syracuse.
This wouldn't have anything to do with your FanDuel, would it?
A little of column A, a little of column B.
A hell of a lot of column C.
C is in for cookie.
Exactly. You read my mind. You read my mind.
Our Final Fours, I have Gonzaga beating Kentucky. I have Kansas beating West Virginia. Kansas over Gonzaga to deny Mark Few with a national title for a second year in a row. Rock, chalk, Jayhawk, baby. Let's go. Jason.
I have Kentucky beating Gonzaga, and I actually changed my original pick that's in our poll, and I'm going with West Virginia getting their first national title, upsetting. Well, I guess you could call it upset. The Kentucky Wildcats.
To be fair, Jason, what do you call 50 feet and 26 teeth?
Family portrait in Kentucky.
The front row at a West Virginia basketball game. Brandon.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I'm going with Kentucky over Michigan, excuse me. And Villanova over Kansas, and sticking with Villanova, doubling up the national championship.
Erik, you wind us up.
I'm sticking with my original pick of Villanova over Kansas. I'm going to go Gonzaga over Kentucky. And I'm with Brandon. Villanova takes it all.
So it's basically the Big East versus the Big 12 on this podcast.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, it's the state of New York versus Jacksonville Jaguars on the kickoff. So why should this be any different?
Oh.
There is one thing you can definitely say about the NCAA tournament. While stress-inducing and headache-causing based on the damage it does to your brackets, it's a whole lot of fun, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially when you can sit back, occasionally get drunk. Although the trend that I miss from this year that they've talked about in years past, there hasn't been a whole lot of hype of...
Naked cheerleaders.
Well, that and not a whole lot of hype about dudes getting vasectomies.
All right, I missed that memo, and we'll close the show with that.
There is one other little thing that I did want to note here. In the year of crazy upsets in this tournament, not one 5 versus 12.
Yeah.
That's the irony.
That right there was the stat line that threw me when I went back and looked at this bracket while I was preparing for tonight's show.
That's the wackiness of the NCAA tournament.
So we didn't get this. I'm pretty sure this is the first time in, I'm going to say at least the last 5 years that a 12 upset hasn't happened. But yet we've got a ton of just wonky other upsets.
I think the 16 over the 1 makes up for the lack of 12 over 5.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it takes. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we get something completely out of the norm of all 4 or 5 seeds advances, but the universe corrects itself and says, "Hey, Virginia, we got something for you."
Yeah, their name is Retrievers. Speaking of which, and let's close on this here. Did you guys see their Twitter just going all in on Virginia during the game?
No, I didn't.
No.
What if, like, a couple of the comments they made fun of Seth Davis saying Virginia Sharpie? and then the other one is at the end of the game when they realized they had pulled the upset there, and then the guy behind the social media management for the university said, "Hey, we beat Virginia at Twitter too."
Now, if only they could have completed the epicness and spelled buildings correctly.
I'm going to blame that on adrenaline.
Yeah.
That's the only logical excuse I can think for that.
Yeah, I'll give them that one.
If you guys have any more interest to find out anything more in relation to the worlds of sports, entertainment, professional wrestling, soccer, football, you name it, you can find it over on the W2M the W2M Network website, W2Mnet.com. For Jason Teasley, Erik Watkins, my producer, Brandon Biskobing, I'm Harry Broadhurst, thanking you for listening to March Madness to the Max, Part 2, here on the W2M Network. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you guys next year.
Electric Boogaloo.
W2M2 Electric Boogaloo. Works for me. Bye, everyone.